Welcome back to the channel, and today I thought I would do a bit of a video thinking about the modular building. We know this is coming to Jurassic World Evolution 3, but I wanted to do a video sort of looking at what we're going to have to learn how to do with modular building to make our stuff look as good as possible. So what I thought we would do is, in gameplay on Jurassic World Evolution 2, take a look at some of the buildings in the game as prefabs and think about, if we were building this in a modular way, what are we going to have to learn how to do? So let's start with, I think, a relatively simple building. Let's start with the restroom, the bathroom building. Now, if you actually look at the bathroom building itself, it's actually a lot more detailed than you might suspect all around it. For such a simple structure, there's actually a lot going on here. So what would we have to do when we're modularly building this? What would we have to think about? Well, obviously the first thing to think about is the planters. These would have to be built directly ourselves, probably, from a combination of pieces: the flowers, the soil, the surrounding pot that it's in. If you just have a look at the entry doorway here, you've got little light fixtures either side, and even the shade, the top section of this door here, it's not just a tacked on piece of wood. You know, you've got these supports here, and you've got these supports also for the roof. That's going to have to be something we definitely do. You're going to have to think about, if you want your buildings to look really good, you need everything to look safe, to look supported, to look like it would actually work with real physics. And actually, if you look at the building itself, you can see it's not flat. The front walls are actually inset into the frames here. The frames themselves stick out, and then you have the wooden frame at the bottom. You've got sort of three specific parts to each of these walls: the outer metal frame, the wood part of the frame, and this ornate wood white and wood front. And you'll see this a lot with a lot of buildings. They're not just flat, and that's going to have to be something we do work on in modular building. If we look around the side, we can see things like the danger high voltage electricity box on the wall. We're going to have to think about that sort of additional props for our buildings. We've got some water pipes down here, and obviously security camera out here, lighting up here, warning signs, staff entry door, sort of the back scene stuff that many of us take for granted in this game. We're actually going to have to think about adding to buildings in Jurassic World Evolution 3 so that they actually make sense, because you've got to think about how staff are going to get in this building, how the building is supplied with power, water, that sort of thing. If you look at the roof, even the roof in itself, in a modular building game like Planet Zoo or Planet Coaster, you might have the wood pieces, but these metal pieces, they would probably all have to be modularly put back in. You're probably looking at sort of 1, 2, 3, 4 strips of this curved metal for the 4 long ones. Then you've got the short, the lengthways ones across the roof surface as well. And then in the middle, these slats would also probably have to be manually placed as a modular building piece. So even something as simple as the bathroom is actually very complex when you think about how you would build it in a modular fashion. Let's take a look at a slightly larger building. So this is a medium amenity, and again, there's a lot going on here. Now, the amenity buildings are obviously, we're going to have plenty of prefabs, but if you think about what the modular elements of building a building like this are, obviously you've got the decorations at the front, the actual amenity building itself, which is formed from the various pieces of concrete. Again, these would probably be, we're probably going to have the wall sections and the window sections as modular pieces, but these additional corner pieces would probably be a modular element we would have to put in ourselves. The entrance in itself is a modular element, sort of sticking out here, with the guest doors, the windows, signage, decorative nature of the wood, then the paneling, and that sort of features all the way up this entrance. And that's also going to have to be something we think about when modular building, is we're going to have to think about the theme, like using similar materials on buildings in similar ways in order to create that theme. But for these buildings, even more so, it's other elements like the air conditioning units and ventilation on the top. We're going to have to put those in manually, as well as the vents. It's also things like the back scene areas, where again you've got more air conditioning and smoke effects. You've got the rubbish area with crates, with pallets, barrels, security cameras, lighting. Also thinking about fire escapes. There's a ladder for a fire escape off the roof. If we want buildings to look as realistic as possible, these are things we're going to have to think about when building in a modular way. Buildings have to look realistic, and realism is built by various methods. One of those methods is, as we said with the toilets, making it look like things are supported and that there's safety inherent in the design, and thinking about elements like the back scene area where people can put rubbish, where you've got air conditioning vents, where you have fire escapes and security cameras. Those are all relevant. You can see like we've got a security camera facing the door out, the staff door out. We have another security camera keeping an eye on the area over here, so you can catch people walking around this fence if they're heading towards the security door, and a third camera pointing in the same direction, giving a wider overview of all this back scene area. So everything sort of makes sense. Let's go and take a look at a guest building. Now again, we know that many of the attraction buildings are coming in a prefab way, but say you wanted to create your own prefabbed attraction buildings, then again you've got to think about what's going to actually be part of them. This is the Jurassic World viewing gallery, and there's actually a lot going on here to make it look and feel realistic. The bull bars at the bottom and the top, where the windows are designed to keep animals from getting too close to the windows and therefore pushing on them or breaking through them. So that's a safety measure. The windows themselves have bars for added strength as a safety measure. Then you've got obviously the internal lighting. Even inside, if you look through the windows, we've got fire extinguishers and warning signs. But thinking about the outside again, we've got security cameras, air conditioning vents, we've got a fire hose here, bollards, addition of seating out the out front, the outside, the air conditioning units again, flags and signage, security cameras all around, transformer box on the ground, and a manhole cover on the ground. Elements like this all make the building, you might say, why bother having the air conditioning vents? Why bother having the electricity box? No one cares about those elements. But it does help to build realism, which is the whole point of these games. And again, if you're going to have raised areas in your modular buildings, you need to think about, well, there needs to be more than one way up and down from here. So you've got two sets of stairwells. There needs to be plenty of safety. So the banisters, fire extinguishers, that sort of thing. Let's take a look at a much larger building. So the Malta Hotel, perhaps one of the largest buildings in the game, and again we've got lots of external features, but I picked this particular building because this is sort of, in terms of the actual building itself, it's got a relatively simple style, but you can see how that simple style is actually quite complicated. If you look at the building itself, we have obviously the flat wall pieces with the windows in. And then each window has a surround. So on the ground floor window, you have this archway surround, and then you have a bar at the top. And then the upper window, you just have the bar at the top. That would have to be done in a modular way. Then each of these wall pieces is technically inset into pillar pieces to add texture. And then those pillared pieces, you've got an element in between them and above them. And then you've got the sort of concrete foundation, as it were, of the building at the bottom as well. And then, the front door is inset. If I go above, you can see that the building is sort of an imperfect H or a W shape. You've got the entrance section is inset, so it's not flat with the front of the building. If you don't do that to your buildings, they sometimes look a bit weird. The door has obviously the surround and the security camera and the lighting. The balcony up here, you have the guest doors, surrounds, lighting. The banister obviously has protection. And then at the very top of the building, you've got the air conditioning vents on the roof, and the solar panels, and the probably something for cable TV or satellite TV, satellite communications. You know, again, as a guest building, you need to think about these things. You've got a vent on the side, probably for ventilation, air conditioning. At the back of the building, you have a raised section, another raised balcony, and again, we've got a different banister here, plant pots, etc. We've got a staff entrance down here, and a guest entrance here with guests. And then even if you take a look around just this outside area, the plant pots, the lighting, the archways, doorways with lights and additional features over them, just for a little bit of texture. The swimming pool obviously with beach houses around it and lighting. And then take a look at this other main building. Obviously you've got all these elements on top which we'll have to manually place. We have the balcony around, but that's not actually all, because then you have this additional section of the building where the air conditioning is. And then on the top here you have another satellite dish. You've got hatchway, vents, and water tanks and stuff like that here. It's a very complicated structure if you look at it just for all of the modular elements. And then you've also got the back scene area, so this additional building which is a totally different style to this. Electric cables, crating, rubbish, staff doors, fire hoses, security cameras. It's a very complex structure, and if you're building this in modular building, a lot of this you're going to have to do yourself. We'll have the wall sections, but we'll have to put in doorways, the windows, the aircon units, the additional texture that you get from having multiple colors and textures on your building. I mean, if we just look at the front, you've got the grey concrete at the bottom. You have the sort of light tan of the sandstone, but then the sandstone for the window elements is slightly darker. And then you have the middle elements, which again is the same sort of darkness as the window elements. And then at the top you have the concrete again. The windows on these sides are brown, but the guest stuff is all the same grey. And then obviously the door is its own colour as well. There's actually a lot of colour and texture to this very simple building, which is going to have to be something we all put in to the modular building. Let's check one more building. Now here I've gone for a relatively standard DFW structure. And even though it's got more flat sides and less indentation than guest structures, it's still a very complicated structure if you think about the external elements that are going on here. All of these windows would be manually placed. The lighting, the security cameras, fire hoses, doorways. You've got plenty of air conditioning vents, some water tanks on the roof. This area obviously is the roof. This additional structure would be modular build. You can use the wall sections for, but you've got little elements to give it some texture. So the satellite dish and the electric cabling on the side going down to the box here, additional signage and fire extinguishers and stuff. The upstairs has a route down for fire safety, a ladder there from this upper surface down to here. You've got ventilation tubing on the top of this building, more aircon units. Around the back you have places for crates for rubbish, electricity boxes. You've got more communications equipment. Obviously the big tower would be something you could probably build yourself, or hopefully there would be a piece like that you could put in. I mean, even on the very top of this building you've got a vent, and you've got a really tall set of communication structures. But if you actually look at the top of the building, you've technically got 3 layers of element here. The sort of gravel asphalt roof would be sort of the natural modular piece you put down. Then there's this grey section, which would be a completely different modular set of pieces. And then this green section, which is yet again another set of pieces. And there's lighting up here too. Obviously, the level of detail that we choose to put into our buildings is probably not going to be this level of excessive detail. But just by having a look at some of the structures in Jurassic World Evolution 2, you can really see how much of it is going to have to be done modularly if we want the buildings to look realistic. We're not going to be able to just plonk down a square of concrete and it look fine. We're going to have to do all this ourselves. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of prefabs still in Jurassic World Evolution 3, which will make things easier for us. We can utilize the prefabs that are included, edit them, pull them apart, take bits off them. That's going to help. But obviously, if we want to build our own unique structures, the things that I've spoken about today here are all elements we're going to have to think about putting in to make these structures look realistic. So I think broadly we can think about what the modular buildings require in a few different characteristics. First characteristics is safety. Realistic buildings are going to have to be safe. So we need to think about fire safety, whether that's fire extinguishers, fire hoses, fire escape ladders. The second thing is structure. The buildings have to look like they are capable of standing up, so we need to think about support elements, pillars, buttresses, support girders, etc. The third thing is texture to the buildings. They can't just all be one color and one flat texture. You need multiple colors, multiple textures. Bits need to be not completely flat. You need to indent them slightly or make them appear not flat line against the wall. Number 4, I would say, is clutter. Buildings are not just clean, they are cluttered. Things like air conditioning, staff entrances, security cameras, lighting, signage. That also includes things like doors and windows. You have to think about where all of that's going, where it makes sense for it to go, just all the clutter of a building that makes sense. And then the final thing that's probably worth thinking about is staff. How are staff getting into the building? What are staff doing with the building? Do they need to have rubbish piles outside, crates outside? Does there need to be staff entrances? Do staff need to get into a different part of the building to the guests, for example? All of that is going to become part of making a modular building look realistic. So that was just a quick video thinking about modular building. Over the next few weeks, as we prepare for Jurassic World Evolution 3, I'm going to play several different modular building games, Prehistoric Kingdom and Planet Zoo, compare their modular methods, thinking about what I like about them, what I don't like about them, and thinking about how to use them with Jurassic World Evolution 3. So if you want to see me playing those on stream, do remember to subscribe to be notified of those streams. Don't forget to like the video if you found anything I talked about interesting today, and I will see you next time. Until then, stay safe, and goodbye.